Hi guys, welcome to phase 3 of your lesson plan. So now once you're done with the lesson objectives and the lesson springboard and the warm-up, and you're also done with explaining the lesson, the mini lesson, now is the time to actually start moving to the actual task the students will be working on, and that's what we're going to be focusing on here today. So before we start, I just need to quickly go over the fact that you need to remember that you're a mentor. Okay, there's a difference between teaching and mentoring. And that's what we're trying to focus on as teachers from now on when we make it a student-centered class. Remember that you're not just drilling, teaching. That was the old technique. Now what we're doing is we're giving students the tools and the skills that they need to use or they need to complete the task, and then we just walk away and let them see the potential that they have inside of them and let them work on their own independently. So that's what we're going to be doing basically in the student task. So let's start with some general tips on how to make the most out of your student task. Okay, now the first tip I have for you guys is to take your time. I want you to remember that this is the biggest task in the whole, the longest task in the whole session. This is the biggest chunk of your session. We said it's divided into 4 parts. This is the biggest part. You need to give them their time because this is the time when the learning actually happens. This is the time when they start applying your skill. So until now, they were just like a sponge. They absorbed all the information, but they haven't actually tried using it. So that's why give them time for it. Now, again, I'm talking here about a typical 45 to 50-minute session online. So I would give them, if I have 50 minutes or 45 minutes, I would give them 20 minutes on that task. However, take care that those 20 minutes are not just for them to answer. Those 20 minutes also include some time for feedback and discussion of their answers. So what I usually do here is I would give them, let's say, if I have 20 minutes, I would give my students 10 to 15 minutes to work on the task. Okay? And I would display that on an online timer. I would show them the time. I tell them, okay, guys, you have 10 minutes to work on this task. And I would start the timer and I would just share my screen and they could see it. Online timers are really easy to use. Just Google online timer, just open the first option that you get. Or an alternative would be to use the clock and the timers on your laptop and then just share it with your students. Now, please don't jump to the answer. Please don't choose a student to answer. Give them all an equal opportunity. So don't just say, okay, so we have the task here. All right, Sarah, would you please answer? Don't do that. Okay, give them 10 minutes. Tell them, okay, guys, you have 10 minutes. Here's the task. I'll give you 10 minutes to work on it, and then we'll get back to it. So they all have an opportunity to answer. All right. And do not help them with the task. Don't chunk it down. Don't explain it to them one by one. No, you can explain the task beforehand. Tell them the task requires you to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's take 10 minutes, work on it, and then discuss it later. And then here's where you're actually mentoring. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't help your students at all. I'm just saying that you shouldn't do it unless it's absolutely necessary. Especially, for example, with your low achievers, they might need a little bit more of guidance with you. Sorry, guidance from you. So you could guide them maybe. If somebody asks you a question, of course, answer the question. So monitor the process, act as a mentor here and monitor the process and just check that everything's going fine, check that nobody is confused about the task and intervene, but only when you absolutely have to. So only when necessary. Okay? Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't help your students. You should. So those 10 minutes when they're actually working on the task, you're not taking your coffee break. No, you're staying here. It's fine. Don't worry about having 10 minutes of silence online. That's okay. Of course, in a traditional class, you'll be able to monitor it more and check whether or not your students are working, but you're doing the best that you can online, okay? So give them 10 minutes, stay there, as I said, stay online, and just check that nobody has any questions. Maybe someone has a problem with their internet connection. Someone cannot reach the document. Someone has a question about the task. Someone's asking you about the time. So be there and help them when they need you to. Now, A very important part of this whole phase is giving them feedback. And that's why I'm saying don't use up the whole 20 minutes on their task. And that feedback is when you can do what we discussed earlier. So they're done, you gave them the 10 minutes. Let's say I'm giving them a literary analysis task. Now I can share my screen, show them the passage, and then tell them, okay, guys, so let's see what you've done here. Who would like to read, who would volunteer to answer, and then I can hear their answers, and then through the discussion the students will know whether or not their answers were correct. Remember that without any feedback there is no added value to the student because they don't know whether or not what they did was correct or whether or not they took the right approach. All right, now if the questions are not that challenging, or if the questions have a short answer, or let's say the questions have are multiple choice basically, or gap fills, which I like to avoid in my class, to be honest, because they're not that challenging. But let's say it is something like that, you can always give them an answer key and tell them, okay, guys, I'm going to share with you now the answer key. What I want you to do is to check your answers, give yourself a score, and then see what you did wrong. And again, they're taking responsibility for their own learning, and they're coming back to you with questions. If they don't know why it was a mistake, they can come back to you with questions as well. Now, a good idea, because as I usually tell you guys, try to get creative. A good idea to get creative with a student task is to experiment. And I'm saying experiment because it's not easy. It could take a couple of times before you get the hang of it. Experiment with group work and pair work. Okay, so what you can do is basically you can let's say early in the year or early in your sessions, before that session, tell them that, okay, I need everyone to choose a partner and then send me a private message, tell me who your partner is. And then maybe create a list of the pairs that you have and then share that list with them. Let the students know who their partners are. And then when you have that task, you can tell them, okay, this task is pair work. Please pair up with your partner, maybe in a private conversation or in a text chat on the side, and work on the task together and then get back here after 10 minutes. Okay, you can do the same with group work. You can divide them in, let's say, 3 to 4 groups and provide a list. So let's say provide for every group a leader and then name the groups and then sort the students in them and then share the list early on with your students and then tell them, okay, this is going to be a group work task. Again, it's a bit challenging, but when I tried it out with my students, it was amazing. So it is worth trying pair work and group work. It adds a lot of interactivity to your class and it makes it a bit more creative. All right, now I'm going to give you some ideas for the kinds of tasks that you can give your students to work on. Now, we're all aware how difficult it is sometimes to provide students with necessary tasks because we cannot use the students' course book, the school book, the workbook, the worksheets, the handouts. We can't use them anymore. So we're going to have to think a bit outside the box and see what kinds of assignments or tasks can we give our students to work on online. So I'm going to give you a few examples in the next section. The first thing here is online exercises with immediate feedback. So what you can do is look up some links. You might find lots of ready-made links on the lesson that you're working on. Okay? Sometimes you have even links for open-ended questions and they just give them a model answer, but that's a little bit more difficult to grade. So again, you can have the discussion at the end, discuss it with them so that they know their correct answers. If it's a gap fill or it's a multiple choice or anything like that, it could provide them with online exercises immediately. And I think this could be helpful, for example, for me as an English teacher. I use it for grammar. I use it sometimes for reading comprehension. I use it for listening. You can do the same with other subjects, I'm sure, but I'm just going to give you examples from my area. Now, the second Now, the second idea we can have here is to just give them the worksheet, but share it with them online. So you can either send them the worksheets in the meeting chat, you can send it to them by email, you can post it in the class wall, whether you're on, if you're on Teams, for example, or if you have an Edmodo class, you can do that as well. Just make sure that it's in Word format so the students can type in it. And if you are going to share with them a PDF file, then just make sure that your students know how to use the highlighter option. They know how to annotate. They know how to add comments in the documents. This is something else you can do on PDF that I found out recently. But you have to teach your students how to do that so that they don't get confused. The third thing is to share a Google Doc. So basically, a Google Doc is like a Word document that you can share with others, and more than one person can add input to it. And as I told you earlier, for example, this is a great tool for group work or pair work, as we discussed earlier. So if your students are divided into groups, maybe you can give each one of them a Google Doc and then they can start working on it. Or in pairs, you can provide each one with a Google Doc and they can start writing. Or you can also use it for class discussion. I'm sorry, I'm really bad at this. So as a class discussion as well, when you are checking during feedback, you can display it online and then the students can volunteer to answer and they can type their answer there. However, you must have a Gmail account. Your students as well must have a Gmail, and you can, again, train them beforehand on how to use this kind of tool in the classroom so you don't waste the class time. Now, the fourth option, which is basically my favorite option, is to use Nearpod, as I've said earlier. So Nearpod gives you a variety of options. You can use it as sticky notes, as you can see here. Okay, you just post the question and they can respond in a sticky note. And you can also like their comments. You can use it, and this is called Collaborate, by the way, here. So this is Nearpod. Here are examples of the activities that they can give you. You can use a matching exercise. You can create a quiz. You can ask them an open-ended question and they can respond. You can give them even a poll at the end. You can give them an online game right here called Time to Climb. They actually compete in it and you see the results at the end. Okay, so you have more than one option to use that. I'm going to attach some links as well to help you with Nearpod in the resources section. Please make sure to check it. And that's basically it. So the student task is the part where you intervene the least and you mentor the most. This is the part where your students learn the most. This is the part where they take responsibility for their work and you step in only when they need your help. So before we leave, I just want you to take a quick moment to reflect. How can you make the task more effective? And then I want you to go back to your current lesson plans and think of some changes you can make to your student tasks. What can you do in your lesson plans to make your student task better or to enhance it? Thank you so much for watching, guys. See you next lecture.